What's up, guys? Today we're going to be talking about real-world assets, the super cycle incoming, or is this just another TradFi trap ready to wreck us, take all our money? Now, we do have BlackRock, bring up BlackRock and DTCC with trillions under management ready to be moved on-chain. And this sounds really epic, but we need to cut through the hype, cut through the bullshit, make sure that we know what we want to do. So I'm asking myself the following questions. First one being, why should moving assets on-chain actually benefit me? And why would it benefit me? It's not my assets. The second question I'm asking myself is, as an asset owner, I'm the one owning the assets, why pay the upfront fees, the legal fees and everything to get my assets moved on-chain or tokenized? And then the last thing is, let's say we're in this and it works. Our real world assets start going up. Our coins make money. We've got a lot of those coins. I'm going to be going through them with you guys. Coins make money. Let's say that happens. How do we know what's the sustainability of this long term? Isn't this just another metaverse where everybody buys in on the tokens, having them 4 years later have no value, no real need? What was the purpose? So this is a couple of questions I want to go through with you guys today. Then we're going to be talking about Link. I want to talk Link with you guys. I want to talk about Ondo, Centrifuge, and a few others controversial like OM. So if this tickles your fancy, you're interested to find a little bit more and see if we can maybe potentially use technical analysis to time our entries, give us better opportunities on this adoption, knowing fair well about all the dangers. Hit the like, hit the subscribe. Let me know where you're tuning in from and what of these coins you're holding. And I'll get into the charting with you guys. Okay. Over to the comments real quick. I'm flying solo. I'm just going to say hi to Renee. I'm going to say hi to LFA1 and obviously Stonku as well. Good day, guys. I'm not streaming to Twitter. It seems today I'm just streaming to YouTube, which means that the viewership is much lower. So do me a solid. Make sure to share the video with a friend. Okay. Now, let's talk about the first topic. Why would moving these assets on-chain benefit you? It's a fair question. And I think what we need to think of it is like this. When we're tokenizing real-world assets, like our real estate treasuries onto blockchains, like Ethereum, I mean, even Canton network, really good example. What it does, it can indirectly benefit us, the everyday users, through the broader ecosystem effects. For instance, it increases the liquidity, the accessibility, as well as the demand behind the fractional ownership. So think of it like this. The easiest way to look at it like this is everything that you were excluded from, that you cannot necessarily own, but is a really good investment. If it moves on-chain, it gives you an opportunity to partially own that. So your economic background, how much money you have, is no longer going to be a factor in owning a piece of property that's maybe overlooking the ocean, or owning a vehicle that's maybe one of 6 in the world and is seen as a classic. This is what real world assets does for us. It gives us access to these things that would ultimately, up till now, basically just exclude us. Okay. What it does as well, it gives you yield opportunities. So these tokenized assets gives us a way to get additional income. Thinking about this now, buying $50 of a skyscraper doesn't look that much, but if you think of the amount of yield that generates, and now the on-chain benefits is that gets shared with you in proportion to your ownership, it really does make for a good long-term investment fee. So it does give us this opportunity to think of ourselves as buying these tokens like Ondo, Centrifuge, is like buying in on the banks itself and the investment vehicles that the banks normally would generate for the wealthy. Now, talking about the wealthy, why should they do this. It's a tricky one. Now, the way that I look at this is, and the frustrating thing from a lot of these assets is they're illiquid. There's no way that you can quickly sell off a little piece of your farm to sort out a cash flow issue. And if it's on chain, it's boarded on chain, it does make that way easier. So it gives the asset holders a possibility or an opportunity to get to funds way quicker. And indirectly, the benefit would be as well, if all of a sudden the amount of people available or the amount of money available or that has access to an underlying asset that they would not necessarily have had, it will drive up the demand and drive up the price. Mona Lisa. Maybe I want to own a little piece of the Mona Lisa. Wouldn't that be nice? Example, if everybody thinks that way, what will that do to the Mona Lisa's price? Because now, if you're not in the top 1%, as an example, that investment excludes your horizon potential or possibilities. Therefore, all that liquidity, I know it's not, most is within the 1%, but all that liquidity is basically not participating in that investment or in that valuation. And that's the benefit that it brings. Okay, so agenda-wise, it drives then efficiency. It allows big players like BlackRock to get access to liquidity. It allows us to get in, and indirectly would bring up the value of those underlying assets because now we can buy. Now, the bubble hype is asset owners can use these real liquidity boosts. So it still rests on us to make sure that we don't There we go, guys. So it seems to I have lost connection. All is working. I cannot control the internet. frustrating, but it seems to be working now. So I'm flying solo. So Peter, let me know. There's always going to be a little bit of a delay in there, but I think it should coming through. So just let me know, those tuning in live now, if you can hear me nicely. Okay. Right, let's then talk about what happens. Let's see where I was. I just want to make sure that, talking about junk. Now, the only risk is, and this is the same metaverse BS that we had last, and NFT BS. Think about the Bored Ape. I don't have an image of the Bored Ape Yacht Club little NFT. That's just a little ape picture. It's got mass generated. There's different variants of it, and all of a sudden it was worth 50 ETH, 60 ETH. So we have to be responsible with this to understand that what it is that we're really assigning value to, and will that be able to be sustained long term, because that will ultimately be the undoing. And as human nature, we tend to overcorrect. So we will probably have all sorts of bullshit being onboarded onto real world assets, or assets will be bought in, stuff that we don't necessarily need, want, or could sustain. And that's the dump. So therefore, when we look at these coins, we need to be, I would say, a little bit more responsible, understanding what it is we're getting in, what real estate is coming, what properties are coming in, and understand where, what the long-term play is, because that would still be the risk. Smart money could still use this to trap you, get you buying bullshit, and then laughing as everything goes down. Okay. And that ties in a lot about, onto the third topic that I wanted to discuss with you guys. And that is what happens to the token price after adoption is over. Now, the way that I can see it, if you look at the long-term play. Everything that will be onboarded will have real utility and value. Proven there. There's a building in a perfect work. There's a building, there's an investment vehicle, there's an art piece that is established an investment. So unlike pure hype cycles, real world assets will be linked to these intrinsic backing of these valuable items. So prices will probably stabilize like stocks after a crash. So there would be a scenario where they could get overhyped just like that, but they would stabilize because in the end of the day, the underlying purpose, the underlying company is still running. Whether the stock prices pumps or dumps, Microsoft, we're still using Windows. Apple, we're still using their phones. Whether the price is there doesn't change the output of the utility that's there. And that's the key. So what could potentially happen is, yes, the volatility would be there, but long term, I still feel like these real world assets would stabilize and give us good long term yield. Okay. Now, the bubble angle, again, sustainable growth or post hype crash, like every crypto super cycle before or super cycle before. And that's the main thing. If the bubble pops and trillions on chain is proven to be overhyped, prices will tank to zero probably. We will have a situation where it's going to be like the emperor's clothes. It's going to be like the metaverse. Again, the reality, the responsibility lies on your shoulders to understand what it is that these guys are bringing on chain and if it's truly valuable. That's it. Okay. Now, guys, let's get into the coins. Over to your comments. Let me know where you guys are at. Do you feel like on-chain super cycle, or is this just going to be another hype cycle? Is it too good to be true? One nice thing that I've found is from my research on this is that if we think about this on real world assets, think of it as democratizing access to assets that would normally be unobtainable to Joe Public. And that's powerful. We're moving into a decentralized space. We're moving into a decentralized way of doing banking, financing. Therefore, ownership should indirectly also be, up for grabs in that regard. So yeah, keep that, let that sink in. Now, the first coin that I want to talk to you guys about is Link. Now, Link is not a real world asset play, correct? But Link is an oracle. Somewhere along the line, the data for this on-chain asset needs to be verified and the value needs to be checked and sustained and so forth. And that's where Link is uniquely positioned as the biggest oracle out there. More usage, more oracle feeds needed, Link's price will go up. And where we look at Link at now, if we look at the previous bull market, you can see Link was also one of the first movers. And why I'm bringing Link to you guys now is simple. If we look at this chart, this is Link on the weekly chart. Well, let me just remove that comment. Link on the weekly chart. Long accumulation above previous resistance levels, which means that this is support. And although we're sitting right there in an area where there's still potential downside coming, from an investment outlook, I would say that Link is, at this stage, starting to break this bearish narrative out there. Now, guys, I cannot give financial advice. I cannot promise you that it's going to go to $21 from where it's at this stage. This is the risk that we need to take. But from a fundamental point of view, it just makes sense that if we do have more network activity, if we do have new protocols, chains, using Oracle systems like Link to onboard these assets, the feeds, the amount of token burns that's going to be there, all those will, like a drop in a bucket, eventually get the cup to spill over and give us another run. And we know the why, we know that TA is going to give us the where, and then mindset is just going to give us the when. And it's being patient, not overreacting on these coins too soon, but understanding that now, from a geopolitical point of view, I think the timing is getting right. Why would the timing be getting right? Think of the Genius Act. What is that doing to stablecoins? The Stablecoin Act and the regulatory tailwinds that's moving into crypto. I mean, look at the amount of stablecoin market cap has grown in little less than a year, from 250 billion sitting at 300 billion. There's a lot of money moving in there. And from 2023, previous bull market highs, I mean, we've nearly doubled. And that tells me that there's a lot of tailwind, a lot of regulatory support coming for this pretty soon. And I mean, even the SEC is backing this. There's a few articles I can quickly share with you guys. Let me just find them. Oh, you see, this is what I hate about the new Google. I don't know if you guys have experienced it. I've got tabs open, but then I've got a second account. And if the internet drops, it syncs, but it didn't save those tabs, and then they disappear. Frustrating stuff. Frustrating stuff, never to say. Never say the less. Okay. But the gist is that all this information, the SEC is starting to encourage them to give solutions to how to do this. And they're actually prone to get this done within the next 2 years. So there's a lot of hype, a lot of fun legal backing behind this that's going to help drive this and give it a hype cycle where we can benefit from. Okay. Let's see what else. Some research came across my desk. I will share in the Discord. Well, that's good. That's good. Let's see what else we have here. Now, this is now Link. So Link, Oracle King, we know that everything real world assets are going to use that, and we know where the supports are. So we're looking at $10. Anything between where we are right now, $10, is a real good area to start thinking about getting or laddering in on Link. And you don't have to do it all at once. Use the multi-buying. I mean, I've got it within my Discord here under the investment guide, the HODL guide. I basically explained that what we need to think of this is the market will always move through cycles. And if that is the case, we need to categorize those cycles, saying if we're buying into weakness, are we managing our bags, or are we selling into strength? And if we're buying into weakness, which is where we are right now, there's the high risk buy, which potentially is where we are right now. We're trying to pick a bottom. And then we wait. Then when we find out that we did pick a bottom, there has been a trend established to the upside, becomes the medium risk buy. And then ultimately, when we start breaking out of lateral ranges, the argument would be, hey, the trend is strong, the momentum's there. We're moving into a hype cycle, low risk buy. That's how you ladder yourself in on these things. So to take this back to Link then, if you think about Link in the previous bull market, this was Link at a high risk buy. This was Link proving to us that it's moving, but it's in an accumulation. And where we're finding ourselves right now could be at these bottoms or at these bottoms. And for now, if you've got zero Link ownership, this is just a high risk buy, just like that down there was a high risk buy. And your medium risk buy is once you start engulfing, making a higher high. In this instance, it didn't even test the upper end of the range. It just went into hype. That's what crypto tends to do. It tends to move real crazy. But that's your medium risk buy. And then if you then put context to this, moving back to this then was your low risk buy. Moving on, now we're staying above these support areas and moving forward. Now let's move the time frame. Well, I wasn't around in 2020, Rudo. So let's move that onto that being your high risk buy, this being your medium risk buy. And now we're going into a low risk buy, meaning we've now gone, we've broken out of that range, we're testing it, low risk buy. But Rudo, I wasn't around in 2023. You can't say that. Well, then let's move the whole thing up again and say to yourself, well, now this becomes your high risk buy. Once we establish as a trend, we will have our medium risk buy. And once we broke out above 21, we will have our low risk buy opportunity again. That's Link. Okay. Now, Ondo. Ondo is dominating tokenized treasuries at this moment, but yet again, as you can see, the price is not supporting just that. So what are we looking at? From the buddy indicator, the analysis clearly says, I just want to make it a little bit bigger for you guys. So you can use this. This is an easy tool to help guide you with these projects. The trend is still bearish. Momentum is range bound and choppy, which means that we are not trending bearish momentum though. So the trend is let me just I misspoke. The trend is bearish, but because we're range bound, we don't have that lower low structure, support gets locked in or lost, a resistance gets locked in. And with another low, that typical structure, we're hovering around, we're potentially within an accumulation phase. And then obviously from that point, when will we start saying that this is trending to the upside or strong? It's either when we have a new pivot, get above that previously lost support at around 65 cents, or alternatively, take time and build a new structure with a new support level so that we can push away from. And that's one thing we don't know, but we do know that the headwinds are going to be supporting this. So have a look at Ondo. Ondo for me at this stage is potentially setting itself up for that. You have the tools, you have everything, and you can switch to the daily time frame most probably with this one, and keep an eye on the divergence. You can see the RSI is turning. See this, the RSI is turning. And the rule is you treat this as a bearish signal until what happens? We reclaim that pivot, which means your high risk buy is now on the premise that I will only consider going medium risk. Once we go above 36, make a higher high and come back down. Then I know we're medium risk. Come back down wherever the higher high takes us. And then from that point onwards, we wait again, few weeks, few months, depends on how price moves, for the low risk and move on. Okay. So I like Ondo, I like the divergence, and I like the narrative, the years there. With gold and silver pumping as it is at this stage, I mean, those coins are, those trading pairs are flying. I mean, gold is just annihilating Bitcoin. There's no other way around this. It's just destroying Bitcoin. And silver just flying even more so. It clearly tells you that money doesn't want to be in the dollar itself. It's going to be looking for assets pretty soon once these crazy ones blow off top. Because that's all that money is going to do. It's going to say, okay, well, thank you for this ride. Now let's look for something else. And the way that money works, it always benefits the elite first. It's just the nature of it. I didn't make the rules, but that's just how it works. So where will they go? They're going to onboard and move their funds, their gold, into these assets, treasury bonds, property, investment vehicles, artwork. The vehicle is going to be ready for them once they offload their gold. Okay. All right. Now let's move on to the next one in this category, would be centrifuge. We're about 23 minutes in. I'm going to start speeding through the coins a little bit just to make sure that we get done. But there you go. Centrifuge, same thing. Look at the RSI. It is slowly but surely turning to the upside. And with centrifuge on the daily time frame, you can see what have we done? We've already reclaimed the initial pivot, and we're trying to turn this into support. We did not make a higher high, so it means that we can still be early from a technical point of view. We know the why. Fundamentals have given us the why. We need the where. And that's what TA does. It gives us the where. We're waiting for the where. And that's the last part, mindset, tells you the when. Once it's all aligned, you need to grab this. So the analysis is basically telling you the trend is trying to become bullish. Great. The momentum is still range bound, as you can clearly see. And then obviously price is still below critical resistance areas. Reclaim that 13 cents and things would start really becoming bullish on this reel now. Now, it's at this stage, I just want to quickly say to everybody, shout out. Today's video is brought to ByBit. ByBit's a long-term channel sponsor. If you want to support the content, all you need to do is open your ByBit account using my link in the video description. And how does it benefit you? Well, simple. If you do that, you head over to the Discord, right up to the top. Links for the Discord is also in the video description. And you claim your ByBit role, meaning that I have opened an account using your affiliate link. All you need to do is just say, I've done that. There, I want to claim my ByBit role. In doing so, it will open a one-on-one ticket with you and me, just the two of us, where you're going to give me your user ID, not any sensitive information, just your account user ID. I will verify that. And if so, I will give you the ByBit role, which unlocks access to the Discord. And in addition to that, give you a weak access to the buddy indicator. So you can play with it, see how it works, and decide whether this is of real value to you. As simple as that. Okay, so do that today. There's only a limited amount of seats available for that. Right. Let's move on to the next one. And this one speaks to the dangers of just that, what I'm saying. Now, the Ondo allegations say there's insider sells and forced liquidations that basically brought this thing to the floor. I'm going to open the weekly chart again, and they're saying it's the exchanges that basically destroyed them, and the whole team, everybody was blaming everybody, but the holders of this coin basically is the ones, sitting with the baked, what's the word? What's the analogy in English? The baked pears? I don't know. something you don't want to bake. Let me just take a sip of water. And so we've got this problem with OM right now. And it's a big question now whether this is going to get revised. What I do know, though, is this could be a complete reset. So if the team keeps working on this, look at those support levels. If the team keeps working on this, it could be that the success of their marketing and the climate of the current environment saw this thing go parabolic too fast. And that is the result. So it could definitely be liquidity, leverage trading, basically just the lack of somebody taking the other side, forcing price up to an unrealistic valuation that created this stuff. Think of it like this. I own one Bitcoin. Bitcoin is valued at $100,000 today. One guy in the world tries to prove a point and tell his friends, I don't care, I'll just go buy a Bitcoin. And he comes to me and says, I want to buy your Bitcoin. It's only Bitcoin available right now. There's not a lot of Bitcoin available right now. So I don't think I want to sell my Bitcoin for 100,000. Although that is market price, it's not fair for me. I want to still turn a profit. So what do? I'm going to put a premium on that. And so, well, if you really want my Bitcoin, I'm going to sell it to you, but I'm going to sell it to you for $1 million. Now, this is what oracles do, and this is how the exchanges work. It records that transaction. All of a sudden, everybody's Bitcoin is worth $1 million through that transaction. It inherited that value gain. Now, this happens again and happens again. So this has happened with Ondo, with OM. So you've got something that's 4 cents, all of a sudden $8, because people were buying ridiculous premiums to get in on this. And it could be that, for fairness, from a technical point of view, the sell-off was just justice because that was a little bit too crazy. That's all that it is. So I'm going to keep this one on the list. And I don't want to dismiss it just yet. And let's see what happens here. We are above critical support areas there. So let's expand this and bring this in there. We're above these critical support areas. And normally, if we fall below those, that's when we really need to start worrying. So there's still a lot of multipliers or a lot of drawdown here. Very risky, but worth keeping your eye on because we don't know what the future holds. Chromia. Let's talk about Chromia. So they're building real-world assets infrastructure. Now, Chromia, there was talks about delistings on Binance and so forth. That's bad. Think about Monero and Monero's drawback against Zcash. Zcash being on all the exchanges, Monero not being there anymore. So you do have that risk that runs with this. But at this stage, if the real-world asset narrative hypes, Chromia might hold. Now, what do we have? We've got the RSI starting to turn. It's not there just yet. It fits the narrative bell of the whole story. We're above that critical support areas there. Let's just take away the RSI real quick. And it's that point where it's at high risk. The high risk is worth taking because the cost to invalidation isn't expensive. We're on the floor. If it falls through, and the rest of your capital doesn't touch this, the rest of your budget. So if you have $1,000 budget, think of it like this, $250 goes in now on spot. That's the kind of thing. The rest waits. Give me an uptrend, turn blue, then I'll buy in with the rest. That's the play here. Understanding that I want a higher high, I need a little bit more confirmation, but it's worth keeping an eye on. Now, Canton Network's one of those big ones again, guys. It's new. It hasn't had its initial hype pump, and it hasn't had its initial hype dump yet. So charting on the weekly time frame doesn't really do it justice. So let's have a look at this from a 4-hour perspective. And I'm going to use the analyst again. 4-hour, what do we have? Trend is bullish, momentum is bullish, structure analysis points to more upside, and your strategy analysis says just hold your swings. There's nothing on this saying that it's over. When did we turn blue? We turned blue there. We've got a higher high. We've got clear supports at 14, which means you don't have, CC has no business going back down there again. Things that go up, guys. It's simple as that. If you consistently want to wait for a buy at $12, you're basically saying, I want you to remain range bound again, fall back into this range, and then I want to buy. And that's the worst way to look at this from a technical analysis point of view. Okay, so keep an eye on this one. The momentum is strong. It definitely is due for more upside. Get above this level. I probably think the 1 hour would be 1 hour just turned blue. And if the 1 hour is turning blue as well, it means all that I'm going to be waiting for is on the 15-minute. I'm waiting for this thing to go. There we go, orange, blue, suggesting that this now is the end of a wave. End of a wave. And now we're establishing our next wave to the upside. Best example would be to think of the previous one. If you want to try and identify impulse, correction, just move it up. Impulse, correction, impulse, correction, impulse. Now you say, Rudo, how do you know this? Well, I can probably, by now, I understand how the RSI is going to start working. Okay, there's the higher high, there's the divergence. That signals the end of the wave. Where's the hidden bullish divergence? There we've got a low. That low is below these lows. So that would be number 2. Same then starts for 3. So there you've got your divergence. That's where the wave basically starts. This is a long, complex correction. You can see this thing's been range bound all along. Where's your hidden bullish divergence? There it sits, with the RSI being lower than everything. But where's the strong divergence? Sitting right there. Lower low with the RSI making a higher low. That's where you nail in your 4. And then from that point, the 5. The buddy indicator basically just does that. And this being part of the correction, saying that the following thing is like this. A, B, C. And this then becomes a bigger A, B, C. And we don't necessarily need to make a lower low on a C. Running flat. This is a long sideways accumulation. So the timing, we have to be positive. But it could be that this 15-minute fails and drops down, and we do make that lower low, and then only go on higher. I don't try and tell myself I know how it's going to look, because that's when you stay out of a move. Where we're at right now, the move is there, the momentum is there. This is potentially the beginning of another wave to the upside. I like this one. Last little coin we're going to have a look at is Pro. They're doing real estate as well. So like I say, guys, you just want to make sure you're not buying BS. And the liquidity relatively at this stage is very low on this one. This is on KuCoin. It's not a lot happening in there. So I'm waiting for this on the higher time frame to turn. So let's go higher time frame and have a look at this. Setting off, building a base. This is really good. RSI is turning around. Daily time frame, what are we doing? The daily has already gone and given us a higher high. The trends to the upside. Momentum, though, is still suggesting that this could be a trap. Weak bearish continuation. Hold this level, start moving up. High risk, medium risk, lower risk. Now we've got a trend. Let's see how it happens. Right, guys, hope that this was of value to you guys. Let me know in the comments below if there's any other coins that I might have overlooked. That is definitely, that fits this narrative bell, that has really strong fundamentals and driving forces behind them. Please let me know. I would definitely want to look at those. And that's it for the rest of the day. You guys have a lovely day. I want to talk to you guys next stream. We're going to be talking about Fight ID. It's a new one coming soon. The coin just launched. And I've got an interesting, I'm just going to give you a little taster. I've got an interesting angle. When we looked at what Chili's did with the Socios app, Fight ID, the biggest growing sport at this stage, one of the biggest growing sports, is the UFC. They're the official online store for the UFC. and the UFC merge. The valuation, in my opinion, is maybe a little bit too high. But I want to look at that because I think that there's a trend there. And the same then for the Chili's ecosystem. Because all these football tokens and everybody around the World Cup, these football tokens really did well. Chili's token did well as well. We've got another World Cup coming in this year. So there might be another trend, another fundamentally backed, TA supported, mindset executed trade coming our way there, guys. You have a lovely day. See you soon. Cheers, everybody.